Hey, take a second and picture this. You open your fridge in the morning, looking for something fresh, but what if I told you some of the foods inside, foods you thought were safe, are slowly breaking down, losing their benefits, or worse, becoming harmful? For seniors over 60, especially those dealing with heart issues, diabetes, or weaker immunity, one small mistake in food storage can lead to serious health problems. But don't worry, in this video, I'll walk you through 4 foods you should never put in the fridge and 4 others that absolutely must stay cold to protect your health. So if you're trying to eat smarter and live longer, hit that like button, share this with someone you care about, or tap subscribe, because this kind of info could really make a difference. Let's get started. Number 1. Tomatoes. Let me guess, you've probably done this without a second thought. Let's discuss tomatoes, specifically the regular, fresh ones you purchase and typically store in the refrigerator, like most people. Here's what's really happening behind that refrigerator door. While tomatoes may appear robust externally, they are actually susceptible to cold temperatures. When stored below 55 degrees F, around 13 degrees Celsius, their skin can toughen and the internal texture changes, becoming soft and mealy. More importantly, cold storage can mask spoilage. Mold, soft spots, or a slightly fermented odor might not be apparent until it's too late, especially if you're not inspecting them daily. Furthermore, if the tomato originated from a vendor you don't fully trust, such as a discount bin in a store with infrequent produce rotation, it's likely already nearing spoilage. Cold storage doesn't halt the aging process, it merely conceals it. For seniors over 60, particularly those with diabetes, kidney issues, or a compromised immune system, consuming a spoiled tomato can lead to bloating, stomach upset, or even more serious health complications. Let me illustrate with an example. I spoke with a caregiver whose mother experienced mild nausea after lunch. They didn't realize she was using tomatoes from the same batch stored in the refrigerator all week, some of which had soft spots hidden underneath. This scenario is more common than you might think. So here's one of those small yet significant senior health tips. Store tomatoes at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. Use them within a few days, and always check for hidden bruises or mold, especially around the stem. If they appear dull or have even a slight off odor, discard them. The bottom line? Refrigeration isn't always beneficial. For tomatoes, it can be more detrimental than helpful, especially when their origin is uncertain and signs of spoilage are difficult to detect. Now, let's move on to the next item. This one often sits in most kitchens for weeks and poses a greater risk than it seems. If you thought keeping tomatoes in the fridge was just a harmless habit, then wait till you hear what happens to potatoes when they're stored the same way. It might surprise you even more. Number 2. Did you ever find an old bag of potatoes hiding in the back of the cabinet? They're unassuming, they don't have a strong odor, they don't spoil quickly. That's precisely why they are often overlooked. However, many people don't realize that when potatoes are stored improperly, especially in the refrigerator, they undergo a gradual change. The cold temperature triggers a process that converts their natural starches into sugar. You might not notice any difference initially, they may still look fine externally, but when you cook them, particularly at high temperatures, these sugars can lead to the formation of harmful byproducts. For seniors, this chemical reaction can pose a significant health risk. Now let's consider a more subtle issue. Many commercially sold potatoes come from uncertain origins. They are often stored for extended periods in warehouses before being displayed in large bins under fluorescent lights at room temperature. Some might even exhibit green patches or sprouting, yet they are still packaged and sold. Refrigerating these already compromised potatoes adds further stress to a food that is already vulnerable. And here's a critical point. Seniors with diabetes or kidney conditions are particularly at risk. Spoiled or sprouted potatoes don't always emit a foul smell, but they can trigger nausea, cramps, or other adverse reactions once cooked, especially when toxins accumulate beneath the skin or near the sprouts. Visible mold isn't the only indicator of harm. So here are a few senior health tips to safeguard yourself. Store your potatoes in a dry, dark environment, such as a pantry or a low cupboard, ideally between 45 and 50 degrees F. Avoid storing them near onions or in plastic bags. Always inspect for green spots or small sprouts before cooking. If you have any doubts, discard them. You don't need to rely on smell alone to detect a problem. A soft area or a sprout can be a subtle warning sign. Drop a 2 in the comments if those old potatoes have ever slipped your mind. It's a good reminder for all of us to check what's hiding in the pantry. Now, the next food item is even more deceptive, and it's something almost everyone refrigerates without a second thought. Number 3. Onions. You know that feeling of safety when everything's tucked neatly inside the fridge? You open the refrigerator, and everything appears clean, cold, and safe. That's reassuring. However, when it comes to onions, cold storage might be more deceptive than beneficial. Here's what actually occurs when you refrigerate onions. While the cool air might seem like it's preserving them, onions dislike moisture, and the inside of your refrigerator contains a significant amount of it. Over time, the onion skin absorbs this dampness, causing it to become soft, slippery, or even moldy near the roots or beneath the initial layers. The most concerning aspect? These signs often remain concealed until you've already begun chopping or cooking. And let's consider the onions themselves. If they originated from a vendor with questionable handling practices or prolonged storage times, they might have already been nearing spoilage. Cold temperatures don't reverse this process. In fact, the refrigerator merely slows down surface deterioration, while moisture facilitates the quiet growth of bacteria underneath. For seniors with weakened immune systems, this type of hidden spoilage can lead to stomach upset, diarrhea, or even infection. I recall a neighbor mentioning that she had stored her onions in the refrigerator for years simply because that's how Mum did it. However, her digestive issues continued to worsen. After switching to a dry storage method, she noticed a reduction in stomach problems. It sounds simple, but for someone with IBS or other gut sensitivities, small changes like this can be significant. So here's one of those senior health tips worth remembering. Store your onions in a dry, well-ventilated area. A mesh bag in a pantry works well. Just keep them separate from potatoes. Regularly inspect them for softness, black spots, or any unusual odor. And if you live alone, purchase smaller quantities to prevent them from sitting around for too long. Just because the refrigerator appears clean doesn't guarantee safety. In this instance, the refrigerator can inadvertently create the very conditions that accelerate onion spoilage. Comment 3 if this has changed your perspective on how to store onions. Let's continue learning together, because the next food item is something almost everyone consumes, but it absolutely must be kept cold. And just like that, something as straightforward as leaving meat out for too long becomes a health hazard that most people don't anticipate. But you know what? It's not just meat. We've seen how cold storage can be counterproductive for other foods as well. Tomatoes lose their flavor and develop an odd texture without always showing clear signs of spoilage. Potatoes undergo a subtle but significant change from safe to potentially harmful if stored incorrectly. And onions, while appearing clean in the refrigerator, can have mold growth encouraged by moisture that isn't always visible. These are often small habits we've developed over time, things that seem safe but might not be. And for seniors, especially those managing health conditions, these minor errors can accumulate quickly. So don't worry, we're not striving for absolute perfection, just a bit more awareness. And that begins with understanding which foods truly require refrigeration and which do not. We've talked about the ones that don't belong in the fridge, where cold actually does more harm than good. But now, let's flip the script. Some foods, they absolutely need that cold, Without it, they go bad fast, and for seniors, that can mean serious trouble. Let's take a look at the ones you do need to keep cold, starting with one that could quietly make you sick if you're not careful. Number 4. Fresh meat, chicken, beef, pork. Let me walk you through something that might sound familiar. You return from the grocery store, the meat still sealed and cold to the touch. You place the bags down, answer a phone call, perhaps rest for a bit. 30 minutes pass, then an hour before it finally goes into the refrigerator. Sounds harmless, right? But here's the reality. Fresh meat begins to deteriorate rapidly when left above 40 degrees F, around 4 degrees Celsius, even for a short duration. While the outside might still feel cool, bacteria can multiply quickly inside. This doesn't take days, it takes hours. For seniors over 60, particularly those with diabetes or kidney issues, even brief exposure to spoiled meat can lead to stomach pain, dehydration, or more severe consequences, sometimes requiring hospitalization. Now consider the source. Not all meat is handled with the same care. If you purchased it from a discount store, a crowded market, or during a busy delivery period, it might have already been left out longer than recommended. And the label won't indicate this. Storing it in the wrong part of the refrigerator, such as the door where temperatures fluctuate, further increases the risk. Let me provide a real-world example. A study by the United States Department of Agriculture demonstrated that meat stored above 40 degrees F for just 2 hours exhibited sufficient bacterial growth to be considered unsafe. Furthermore, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, seniors account for nearly half of all hospitalizations related to certain foodborne illnesses from meat. So here are a few senior health tips to ensure your meals are safe. Always refrigerate fresh meat as soon as you arrive home, ideally within 30 minutes. Store it in the coldest part of the refrigerator, typically the very back. If you don't plan to use it within 3 days, freeze it immediately. Ensure your refrigerator temperature remains between 35 and 40 degrees F and your freezer at 0 degrees F. Once meat begins to spoil, it cannot be salvaged, and for seniors, the potential health consequences are too significant. If raw meat needs that cold to stay safe, then pre-cooked foods might seem easier, but they're actually just as risky if handled the wrong way. Let's take a closer look. Number 5. Pre-cooked or ready-to-eat foods. Do you ever grab leftovers from the refrigerator and think, smells fine, should be okay? That's the critical moment right there, that instant trust in a container that's been sitting in the cold, but perhaps not cold enough, or for the appropriate duration. You see, foods like deli meats, potato salad, and last night's dinner can appear perfectly safe, with no unusual odor or change in color. However, these pre-cooked items are actually more vulnerable than you might expect. Their moisture content creates an ideal environment for bacterial growth, especially if your refrigerator isn't sufficiently cold or if the food wasn't cooled down quickly after cooking. And let's not forget how these items are sold. Ready-made meals from convenience stores or salads from the deli counter aren't always stored at consistent temperatures. Some may sit out longer than they should before being packaged. If you purchase them and forget to refrigerate them promptly, that's ample time for bacteria to proliferate without any noticeable signs. For seniors, particularly those with heart conditions or weakened immunity, this can lead to more than just a stomachache. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, older adults are 5 times more likely to be hospitalized due to contamination from pre-cooked foods compared to younger adults. A seemingly simple cold-cut sandwich could escalate into a serious health issue if stored improperly or kept for too long. So, here are a few senior health tips to help. Maintain your refrigerator temperature between 35 and 40 degrees F, around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Store leftovers in shallow containers to facilitate faster cooling, and always label them with the date. Most ready-to-eat foods should be consumed within 3 to 4 days at most. When in doubt, thoroughly reheat it or discard it. The risk simply isn't worth it. It might look safe and taste fine, but sometimes it has already spoiled. Leave a 5 below if you've ever gone back to leftovers thinking, it's probably still fine. We've all done it. Let's talk about what's worth keeping and what's not. Number 6. Dairy products. Milk, yogurt, soft cheese. Have you ever poured a glass of milk, taken a sip, and something just felt? It looked fine, still within the expiration date, but something wasn't quite right. That's because dairy products can spoil easily, even if you believe they are stored correctly. Let me explain. Milk, yogurt, and soft cheeses are extremely sensitive to temperature fluctuations. If they are left out for even an hour or stored in a warmer part of the refrigerator, like the door where the temperature constantly changes, they begin to spoil rapidly. Once this process starts, visual inspection alone is often insufficient to determine safety. The risk increases if you purchase from less regulated sources, such as open markets or unfamiliar brands. Issues like improper pasteurization, mishandling during transport, or contamination at the source can lead to problems even before the product reaches your refrigerator. For seniors, especially those with heart disease, diabetes, or sensitive stomachs, this can result in days of digestive discomfort or more serious health issues. I've known people who became ill even though the milk was only opened yesterday. The cause? It was left on the counter too long after breakfast. That's all it took. So here are a few senior health tips to keep your dairy products safe. Puri moly. Store all dairy items in the coldest part of your refrigerator, typically the back of the middle shelf, at a temperature between 35 and 40 degrees F, around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Never leave them out at room temperature for more than 30 minutes. If they smell sour, appear lumpy, or taste different, discard them. Even if the label indicates they are still good, your senses are often a better indicator. If you are lactose sensitive, opt for alternatives like lactose-free milk or unsweetened almond or oat milk, and ensure these are also promptly refrigerated. Dairy products might appear fresh, but spoilage can occur quickly. For seniors, it's not worth taking a chance. Hit 6 in the comments if milk ever caught you off guard, looked okay, tasted off. You're not alone, and the next one might be sitting in your fridge too. And if you've ever hesitated before taking a sip of milk, now you know you weren't mistaken. Dairy spoils quickly, even when it appears fine externally. But it's not just milk. Consider all the pre-prepared foods we keep for convenience. Deli meats, leftover meals, that potato salad from the grocery store. If they aren't kept at a sufficiently cold temperature, they can become hazardous rapidly. Then there's meat, which might seem safe straight from the packaging, but if it has been left out for too long, spoilage has already begun. These are all seemingly minor occurrences in the kitchen, a brief delay here, a little bit of trust there. However, for seniors, these moments are more significant than we often realize. Let's continue, because the next item might already be lurking in your refrigerator drawer, and it's one that many people forget to inspect. And here's the thing about dairy. It can spoil without any obvious signs. No sour smell, no change in color, no warning whatsoever. Which brings me to an even more critical point. The cold you rely on might not be as consistent as you believe. Most people simply trust that their refrigerator is functioning correctly. You close the door, the light turns off, and you assume everything inside is fine, right? However, temperature isn't always uniform, especially in older refrigerators or those that are opened and closed frequently throughout the day. For instance, the door shelves are the warmest area, suitable for condiments but not for perishable items. Additionally, if your refrigerator is overfilled, airflow is restricted, preventing cold air from reaching all areas effectively. Worse still, some zones might remain in the temperature danger zone for hours without your knowledge. So here's a tip that can silently protect your health more than you might realize. Invest in a simple refrigerator thermometer. You can find one at most grocery or hardware stores for a small cost. Place it on the middle shelf, not the door, and ensure your refrigerator maintains a temperature between 35 and 40 degrees F, around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. The freezer should consistently stay at 0 degrees F, minus 18 degrees Celsius, but don't stop there. Begin using your sense of smell and touch more actively, like a built-in safety mechanism. If a package feels inflated, the texture seems slimy, or the smell causes even a moment's hesitation, trust your instincts. Labels might indicate the food is still within its date, but your senses often detect spoilage first. Especially for older adults, as digestion slows and the immune system might weaken slightly, this isn't about being overly cautious, it's about ensuring safety. Therefore, when in doubt, discard it. These small habits might seem insignificant, but they are among the most frequently overlooked senior health tips I've encountered over years of working with older patients. Now let's continue. We still have one more cold-sensitive food that is easily forgotten and might be right in front of you. So, as we just discussed, sometimes the most effective changes aren't dramatic. They are subtle, like checking the temperature in your refrigerator or trusting your senses of touch and smell before relying solely on a label. And when you begin incorporating these small actions now, the benefits will likely appear sooner than you expect. This includes a reduced risk of food poisoning, fewer stomach problems, and increased peace of mind every time you open the refrigerator. Especially for older adults, this type of daily protection provides significant cumulative benefits. Ultimately, this video emphasizes one straightforward truth. Certain foods can become harmful simply based on where we store them. And when you are over 60, making the correct storage choices isn't just a good idea, it's an integral part of maintaining your health and independence for longer. So, if this has helped you identify even one habit you are ready to adjust, please give this video a like. Share it with someone you care about. Remember to drink plenty of water, attend your regular checkups, and if you haven't already, follow us here at Healthcase for more simple tips that safeguard your everyday health. Because your refrigerator shouldn't be a source of uncertainty, let's ensure it works for you, not against you.